Hello everybody, my name is Brooklyn, otherwise known as TheDramaticOtaku, and welcome to today's episode of Read and Review, the spookiest of all of my book review series since it seems to just be about Junji Ito. So today I'll be actually reviewing two of Junji Ito's novels, the most recent short story collections, The Liminal Zone Part 2, as well as Moan, which comes out a little late in the year as of me recording this, but we are going to start off with The Liminal Zone Part 2. Now, this series of mine does go over a lot of spoilers for the actual books themselves. I go through each and every one of these short stories and give you my thoughts on them individually, separate from my weeb wrap-ups. Now, starting off, we have The Liminal Zone with four stories: Demon King of Dust, Village of Ether, The Strange Hikizuri Siblings, Chapter 3, and The Smells of Manjanuma. So we're going to start with the first story, which is The Demon King of Dust. Demon King of Dust follows Yuichi, a little boy who lives in a abandoned town and lives in a former inn, one ran and handed down from his family, from the male side of his family, from his dad, from his great-grandfather to his grandfather to his dad. There is this obsession of his father's, of the Demon King of Dust, and how he desperately does not want dust entering his inn, which isn't really an inn at this point, at all whatsoever. There is two maids. One of them falls pregnant with the father's child. The mother is out of the picture, and the other maid gets quite jealous. Mysteriously, the first maid who was pregnant dies, and the father opens up the roof of the inn to a horrible secret of the families. So the end of the story, skipping a little bit, the end of the story goes through the birth of the Demon King of Dust. I found it quite overwhelming. The story itself has imagery evoking the intro of Uzumaki and Gyo all at once. The story was decently interesting, as I couldn't tell who the actual bad guy was immediately. However, I felt the dust monster at the end was very whelming for what the story was building up to. So I gave the Demon King of Dust 6 out of 10. It is a decent intro to the story, but isn't fantastic. Now, Village of Ether is the cover art of the story and is the main draw of Liminal Zone Part 2. The Village of Ether is a group of college students are going to the hometown of one of them, a hometown that has seemingly been abandoned. All to go and see these perpetual motion machines that one of the students saw when he was a young boy. When they stumble upon the town, there is these massive slag heaps. There are these two massive slag heaps that are about the size of mountains, and so when they go in to investigate and see all of these perpetual motion machines and not a single person, they get very confused. Until they stumble upon the son of the scientist who made the perpetual motion machines. From there, death occurs, as two of the members are killed and turned into pulley people, like the wonderful person on the cover who isn't actually in the story whatsoever. To not spoil the ending, I like that this is more of a sci-fi-ish story than the Demon King of Dust. I do find it interesting when Junji Ito does sci-fi, and having read his autobiography, I can see where that sort of comes from. I really liked the very sweet ending for Yota and Yota's parents saving him, as Yota's parents had been turned into bully people. And and if I have to read or say the words perpetual motion machine again, it will be too soon. Again, this story gives me Gyo-esque vibes solely because of the pulley people, and as shit of a review as The Village of Aether that I gave, it did get a 7 out of 10 for me. It is a pretty decent story and is much longer than the Demon King of Dust. Then we have The Strange Hikizuri Siblings, Chapter 3. These fuckers again. So, if you haven't seen my previous reviews of any of Junji Ito's works, I do not like The Strange Hikizuri Siblings. I typically don't like gross out characters or weird characters in horror, much like The Strange Hikizuri Siblings, or like Octogirl, which you can't see, I realise as I point up to my horror shelf. However, I was pleasantly surprised by this volume of The Strange Hikizuri Siblings. So, this chapter follows a cursed girl, and she has just an overwhelming darkness that hangs over her. She lives in a group home, does not know who her parents are, just knows the names of her mother, and always feels like she has this strange curse around her, that misfortune always befalls her. And she one day walks by the Hikizuri family home, just as they are doing a ceremony to, I believe, their father's grave, or doing a prayer to their father's grave. Of course, the older brother takes to this young girl who is stated to be 14 and is trying to impress her with his big fucking ego. But in trying to impress her and trying to cure her of her curse, she falls upon, what's his name again? Hitoshi. She stumbles upon Hitoshi, and they have some kind of connection together. They don't know what it is, but Hotaru, who is the girl's name, tries to free Hitoshi, and as she does, the curse gets lifted. That being said, I actually really liked this volume, mainly because the main character of Hotaru actually got a good ending. I love that Hotaru is actually related to the Hikizuri siblings. She is their cousin, but that she gets a better ending than they did. And that she is freed at the end of the story. I also love that Hitoshi is actually getting treated decently well in the story up until the soul of his father once again gets exhumed from his body. Honestly, Hitoshi as a Hikizuri sibling deserves way more, and I am sad that he had to go back to that family. I gave this a 7.5 out of 10. Surprising for the Hikizuri siblings. I actually liked that one and liked the direction it went, mainly because it was not focusing on the big brother. Ugh. And then finally the last story, The Smells of Manjinuma. Now in this tale, it is basically folklore that in creek or in the pond of Manjinuma there is these turtles, and these turtles had been are said to be the souls of the people in the town due to some kind of natural flood disaster, and that if you disturb these turtles they piss everywhere and just make this awful stench, and that on the underside of the turtles is the face of a person. And then surrounding the pond with the turtles in it is crows, and that these crows will pick up these turtles and go and smash them on the road next to the creek and wait till a car flattens the turtle to eat the insides of the turtle, you know, circle of life. But that once they have crushed these turtles, they will get the body plate of the turtle, pick it up and put it on the doorstep of the person whose face it resembles, and then that person will go on to have a horrifying death. There is a hikikomori, and he picks up a turtle from this pond that looks like his mother. The mother that had to abandon him because of his father. Now, the father actually gets one of the turtle shells out in his front door and freaks the fuck out and dies. However, the turtle that the son saved then gets crushed, and he sees on the news that his mother has died. That is when the main character of the story decides to go and take revenge. And I will leave the ending in your hands. But I weirdly really liked this one. I think the folk story aspect of it and the fortunes coming to fruition, I found really fun. More of a fun story than a horrific story. It's the kind of story that I used to enjoy a lot as a kid. You hear these folk tales and you get really scared by them, but the fact that it kept happening, I really liked. It's weirdly like, it's like a story you'd hear in Yamishibai. So I gave it an 8 out of 10. It's the story that I liked the most in the series. I will say I do like that all the stories in Liminal Zone are much longer than some in the short story collections. Mainly because like there's clearly a lot more effort put into these stories. Not to say that there isn't in the short story collections, but it's more like, I don't know, compared to the Liminal Zone one, I like that these short stories are actually much longer and much more concise and coherent, and have more of a satisfying ending. That's something that was very consistent with these. They had very satisfying endings. Some of them had happy endings, some of them had horrific endings, but I just liked the cohesion of it all. It was a good, surprisingly, a very good set of stories, especially when you have the Hikizuri siblings in it. Overall, I give the Liminal Zone 2 a 7 out of 10. That's sort of the average of all the stories. And seeing as I'm talking shit about the short story collections, let's move on to Moan.
So, due to some unforeseen circumstances, I won't be able to get my hands on Moan until November. So, you guys can expect a read and review of Moan, I think in December. So, hope you guys enjoy this, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!